walking down the street on clouds instead of the concrete I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way, nothing can ruin my day. No matter what anyone does or say, I smile at fools. No, I don't care, cause I am on my way up, and I won't stop, I won't slow down. Steady on my feet, I'm gonna rise up. No, I won't stop, it is my time.
So hey everybody, it's Mickey, and in today's video I've gone back into the archives and pulled 5 of my top best family night dinners. These are the recipes that I'm sure will become some of your family favorites. So if you are new here, I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe. I put out new videos every week about all things home. The first recipe that I'm going to be sharing today is for chicken piccata. Now, you may not think that this is a busy night meal, but it is really simple to put together and it cooks up in just minutes. It is also special enough to have on a holiday or to serve to friends. The first thing that you are going to need for this recipe is some thin sliced chicken breasts. You can always cut your own and just flatten them out till they are about 1/4 of an inch thick. You will also need some flour and seasonings. I like to use garlic powder and Mrs. Dash, salt and pepper, and I like to add a good bit of cayenne pepper. You will also need some capers. Now, I am not a big fan of capers, but I do use about 1 tablespoon or so to get that good briny flavor in there. You'll also need some white wine. I like to use this Barefoot Pinot Grigio for cooking, especially deglazing my pan. You can leave it out entirely and just use a little bit of chicken broth. You'll also need about 1/2 cup of water, 1/4 cup of lemon juice, 3 tablespoons of butter, and some chopped fresh parsley. In a large sauté pan, add a little butter and olive oil. Season your chicken really well on both sides and dredge it through some flour. Sauté each side for about 5 or 6 minutes. This chicken is sliced so thin that it will only take a few minutes to cook. Once the chicken is lightly browned, remove to a plate and cover with a little bit of foil. Then add to your hot pan some white wine to deglaze the pan, which basically means just to scrape up some of the little cook bits from the bottom. Let the white wine cook for just a few minutes, then add about 1 tablespoon of capers to your pan and squish them up just a little bit so that they can release some of their brine. Add your lemon juice and your 3 tablespoons of butter. Let this cook for a little bit until it thickens up. And then you're going to add your water, bring it all back to a boil, and add back your chicken. Let it cook for a little bit, and then sprinkle the fresh parsley on top, and you're done. I like to serve this with some seasoned white rice and broccoli. You can also serve it over mashed potatoes or pasta. This is such a beautiful, delicious dish, and one that you can serve on a regular Wednesday or a special occasion. So I got a special request for dinner tonight. I'm going to be making stuffed peppers. This is a recipe I'm sure I've shared on the channel before, but I just haven't made in quite a while. So I stopped at the grocery store on the way home and I picked up 3 green bell peppers, 2 zucchinis. I got a couple packages of ground turkey. Now you can also use ground beef, but I have just been replacing ground turkey for all my beef recipes. And I picked up a 28-ounce can of tomato sauce. So I'm going to start browning my ground meat, and I'm going to chop up my zucchini and slice my peppers. So when I chop up my zucchini, I like to chop it in like really big chunky strips. I kind of just add it in among the peppers before I pour over the tomato sauce. This way they don't cook down too far and they're still nice and chunky when you serve it up. Now for the peppers, I don't stuff the whole pepper. I cut my peppers in half and then just stuff the halves. This way, I think it gives it more surface for the tomato sauce to cover, which is one of my favorite things about stuffed peppers. And they make them a little bit more of a reasonable serving and not too big. So I just take the top out of my pepper and I clean it out a little bit, and then I just cut it in half, just like that. Once everything is all cut up, I arrange it in my casserole dish, just like this. And then I just add my zucchini here along the side. And then once I fill up my peppers with the filling, then sometimes I'll use a zucchini just to keep it upright so it doesn't spill over. So there we go. So this is all ready for our stuffing to be put in. In a large saute pan, add a little bit of olive oil, and then you're going to want to brown up your 2 packages of ground turkey. So once your meat is all brown and you've taken it off the heat for a little while, just to cool it down just a little bit, I'm gonna add some breadcrumbs. How much, I really can't tell you. I'm gonna go with at least start with about 1/4 of a cup, and then you can see how everything holds together once you add your other ingredients, which I always add some Mrs. Dash, salt and pepper, garlic powder, a little bit of a red pepper flakes, some parsley. I like to add a little bit of minced onion, you're also going to add some pecorino romano, and it's pretty much a good handful or so. And then you're also going to add 1 egg, mix this all up, and then we'll see how it is holding together. I went ahead and I added another egg and a little bit more of the breadcrumbs, and you can see that it is holding together really well. This is about the consistency you want it to be. So now we can take this filling and add it to our peppers. So I have all of my peppers all stuffed, and now I am going to just add in my zucchini around the edges. It helps prop up the peppers so they don't all spill out. You know, if you get some spillage, it's no big deal because you always serve it with a big spoonful of sauce. So there we go, I got my zucchini in there, and now I'm going to take my 28-ounce can of tomato sauce and I'm gonna pour it right on top real carefully so that I can be sure to cover as much as possible. And be sure to add a little water to your can so that you can get every drop. Gonna add a little bit, and I think I'm gonna get another small can of tomato sauce and add just a little bit more. We like a lot of sauce in our house, so once this is all covered, Then I'm going to add some of the same spices that I put in the meat. Alrighty. Okay, that looks really good. With the addition of just a little bit of sugar sprinkled on top. And I'm going to also add a little bit of basil. And then it'll just be salt and pepper, parsley, Mrs. Dash, and garlic powder. I'm also going to add a little sprinkling of the pecorino romano because, quite honestly, it makes everything so much better. Okay, so this is all set to go in the oven. I'm going to cover it with foil, and then I'm going to bake it in a 400-degree oven for about 25 to 35 minutes, depending on the doneness of the peppers. Stuffed peppers are one of those recipes that really does make your house smell so good. I like to serve ours over a bed of buttered and parsley rice. This is one of the dishes that I usually serve on Christmas Eve. I like to add red and green peppers for the holiday. This recipe that I'm going to share with you is for a chicken and rice casserole that is just so good and cheesy. It's one of those that I make a lot of times on the weekends to prep for the week ahead. It is great as a work day lunch, and it is great as a quick weeknight meal. This recipe is perfect if you have some leftover turkey, maybe after Thanksgiving or a big Sunday meal. I have my chicken in the oven right now baking up, so let me show you what else you're going to need for this recipe. There are so many good things in this recipe that it just can't help but be good. So for this recipe, you are going to need a red and green bell pepper chopped. You're going to need I'm going to use probably half of this onion. You're going to need a cup of sour cream and a cup of mayo. You're going to need some long grain wild rice. I'm just using this rice-a-roni. You can also just use regular brown rice or white rice. You'll need some cheddar cheese. I have a bag of mixed frozen vegetables back here. You're going to need a can of sliced water chestnuts, and you'll need some RITZ crackers to smush up on the top of your casserole. So I have my rice cooking on the stove, and I'm going to start to chop up my vegetables. I've added a couple mushrooms here too. I had them in the refrigerator. I think they will be really good in this recipe. I really do love casseroles because you can pretty much add in whatever you have in your refrigerator. One of the best things about casseroles is that they are such a huge time saver. We are busier than ever, and casseroles are so easy to prep the day or night before. Then the day of, all you have to do is stick it in your oven and put it on your table. Casseroles always freeze really well, so you can oftentimes double a recipe, serve one, and then put one in your freezer for later. Then we're going to saute our mushrooms, onions, and peppers in a large pan. I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic to this mix. We're going to saute these until they are soft and translucent. Shred up a couple chicken breasts. You're going to want, I guess, about 3 cups of chicken, or whatever you have left over from another meal would be great. You can also, if you have just a little bit of chicken left over, you can use a can of chicken. mixed in, it all works. So I have about 3 cups here, and I'm going to put this in a large bowl where we're going to mix everything up. To our big bowl that we have all of our chicken in, we are going to add the rice, the can of water chestnuts. We're going to add most of this bag of 12 ounces of mixed vegetables. And then I'm going to add some mayonnaise and some sour cream. I've also added a little bit of garlic powder, some Mrs. Dash, some dried parsley, and then we're going to add our sauteed veggies. And we'll mix this all up and get it in our casserole dish. As far as the sour cream and the mayo, I have probably added about a half a cup of each of them to this mixture. It really depends on if you want a creamier casserole or one that's a little bit more dry. I like mine a little bit more dry because we're going to be adding about a cup of cheddar cheese to this. I am using the 4-state cheddar, which is one of our favorite blends. It has white and yellow cheddar. So we're just going to eyeball it and put like a handful in there. We're going to save the rest for the top of the casserole. Mix that up. And I think it's ready for the dish. So I'm going to spray my casserole with some nonstick spray. And then pour our mixture inside. Cover the top with your cheddar cheese. And then what I like to do with casseroles, I like to give it a little bit of a crunchy topping. So I'll just take a bunch of Ritz crackers and just kind of smush them on top and sprinkle all around. You can add a little bit butter to the top as well. Some people like to add an egg to the crumbs, but honestly, I just think your plain crackers are enough. So we're gonna cover this with foil and put it in the oven at 350 for 35 minutes. I've just taken this out of the oven and it just smells so good and looks so good. I can't wait to plate this up so I can take a couple bites, and I will surely show you what it looks like on the plate. This casserole is just so good. It has so many yummy things inside of it. I have the family gathered around the table right now, so I'm going to join them. I just wanted to remind you that I will have the recipes for the casseroles I shared today down in the description box, and you guys will have to let me know if you try them, or especially if you added something different to them. I'd love to see what you did. So I have a really simple, delicious recipe that would be perfect for a special occasion, or if you have some friends over for dinner. This dish has so much flavor and it is so easy to put together. What you'll be needing for this recipe is some Italian breadcrumbs, flour, a couple of eggs, a whole bunch of everything but the bagel seasoning, and some chive and onion cream cheese. I'm going to be using the cream cheese that I bought at Aldi's in my most recent Aldi's haul. So far, everything that I've tried from Aldi's has been great. And of course, you'll also be needing some boneless, skinless chicken breast. I always like to get all set up with my dredging stations. I add a little bit of hot sauce to the egg wash. It really doesn't add heat, but it does add a lot of flavor. I've mixed the everything but the bagel seasoning in with a little bit of breadcrumbs and added a little bit of paprika and garlic powder. Next, I'll put a little slit in the side of each chicken breast and put about a tablespoon of cream cheese inside, and then I'll dredge each piece in flour, egg, and then the everything but the bagel mixture and place it in a casserole dish. I baked mine at 400 for about an hour. I always check with a meat thermometer to be sure that it has reached the proper temperature. This chicken is just delicious, and I've paired it with some of my pasta primavera. I've shared this recipe so many times on my channel, but it's still one of everyone's absolute favorites. This is always such a huge hit with anyone that I serve it to, and it is such a quick and easy recipe that it's perfect for a weeknight meal. I think every Italian family has their own recipe for pizza dough, and we are no different. We used to make it the old-fashioned way, completely by hand. But then later on, we started using our food processor, and we have found that you can really make a lot of dough in a very short period of time. Today, I'm going to be making 3 batches of dough for 3 large pizzas, and I'll show you what you need for the recipe. Okay, so to start off with, you're going to need 1.25 cups of warm water, and you're going to need some active yeast. And my suggestion is, if you know you're going to be making, any type of bread, go out and buy yourself a brand new packages of yeast. That way you know they are the freshest possible and they'll really work out well for you. You're also going to need 3.25 cups of flour, a tablespoon of oil, a tablespoon of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of salt. So I'm going to start by putting 1 package of the yeast into the warm water and let it sit for 5 minutes so that it can activate. And then I will show you how quickly we can make this dough. So you're going to get 1.25 cups of warm water, add a tablespoon of sugar, and then the whole packet of the yeast. I always mix it just a little bit, and then you're going to let this sit for about 5 minutes for it to proof. So as you can see, the yeast is proofing really well. We have a couple more minutes left on that. I'm going to be putting all of the 3.25 cups flour into the food processor, along with 2 teaspoons of salt. And I'm just going to pulse this a couple times just to mix up that salt with the flour. And then while the food processor is running, I'm going to add the yeast, and a tablespoon of oil. Just let the food processor run until you see the dough starting to form a ball. You're going to get your dough and turn it out into a lightly floured surface, and just knead it for a few minutes until it gets nice and smooth and elastic. So then you're going to take your cake pan with a little bit of olive oil in it. Take your dough, put it inside, and turn it over. And then I'm going to cover it with some cling wrap. Spot, cover it with a clean towel and let it raise for about an hour. While the dough is rising, I'm going to get working on our pizza sauce. This sauce is really simple to make and it tastes so much better than any store-bought sauce that you can find. You'll be using the same types of seasonings as you would for any tomato pasta sauce. I do suggest, however, that you use crushed tomatoes. I think that it gives a more authentic texture to your pizza sauce. You will also need some garlic powder, salt and pepper, oregano, basil, parsley. I also like to use a handful of Romano cheese and a little bit of sugar. So I have my dough rising there on the table, covered up with a muffin, as my mother would call them. And right now we're going to talk about what our next steps are. You can use a traditional pizza pan for your pizzas, or what my family likes to use, and to make what we call a Sicilian pizza that has a little bit of a thicker dough to it, is a jelly roll pan. And as you can see, this is a very well used, well loved jelly roll pan. The more seasoned your pan is, the better your crust is going to come out. So this is why I use this very well seasoned pan for my pizzas. You're also going to need some cornmeal because you're going to sprinkle it on your pan to help your dough stretch out and reach all the corners of your pan. I like to always sprinkle a little bit of garlic powder on my dough before I put my sauce on it, and then you can do any toppings that you want. This first pizza that I'm going to make is going to have my favorite green peppers on it, and you can use store-bought shredded cheese, or you can shred it on your own. I like to use Italian blend cheeses that have, you know, mozzarella and provolone and Asiago and Parmesan, all those good cheeses mixed together. And you can also, you know, just use your mozzarella cheese that is really easy to find out in the stores. This is some of our pizza dough, and as you can see, it has pretty much doubled in size, and that is what you want it to do. You want it to be able to, you know, make a little indent in it and spring back a little bit. So before we get started putting it in our pan, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cornmeal to make it easier for our dough to be pushed into the sides and fitted to the pan. All right, that looks pretty good. And now we're just going to start rolling out our pizza. So I have my dough in my pan and it is looking good. I'm about to put my sauce on. You want to have your oven preheated to 450 degrees. Once we get this all put together, we're going to bake it for about 15 or 20 minutes. Everybody's oven is a little bit different, so you want to keep a good eye on it. I have the best memories of making pizza as a family when I was a kid. Everyone in my family made pizza. I had several uncles who were firemen, and every Friday they would make pizza at the firehouse, and sometimes as kids we were able to go down and eat with them, and their pizza was some of the best I've ever had. This pizza is just about ready to go in the oven, and we're going to bake it at 450 degrees for about 15 or 20 minutes. The first pie is all done in my oven. It took about 18 minutes to bake this jelly roll size pizza. Times will of course vary depending on your oven and the size of pan that you use. I would really love for you to give this recipe a try. This one has been a part of our family literally forever, and I would love to see what you think, the toppings that you use, and how you make this recipe your own. So thank you all so much for watching today. These recipes were so fun to gather together, and this video I think was the perfect one to ease my way back after vacation. I have so many plans for us coming up. There's going to be a big announcement in just a couple of weeks, and I cannot wait for what the future holds for our community. Please join us on Facebook and Instagram at My Bashful Life, and don't forget to subscribe. I'd love to have you all back as part of our growing YouTube family. So until I see you in that next video, I hope that you love the life that you have, be kind to each other, stay safe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.